Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the Thames Valley. Box after box of clothing, blankets and medical supplies. Volunteers in Andover and Oxford help the aid effort in Turkey as the number killed in the earthquake passes 11,000.
We lost lots of our love there, our friends, families, our heart there, our brain there.
The Ukrainian community in Reading comes together as President Zelensky visits the UK for the first time since the conflict began.
Also this Wednesday, calls for HS2 construction to be paused as wildlife charities say the impact on nature in Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire has been underestimated.
And we've had some murky mornings over the last couple of days, but would you know a fog bow if you saw one? If not, I'll be back later with some pictures and the full forecast.
Good evening. A Turkish man living in Oxford who is helping aid reach his home country following the devastating earthquake says more donations are needed.
Ahmet Küçük is a computer scientist at the University of Oxford. He drove to London yesterday with a truckload of clothing, blankets and medical supplies.
Well, with the death toll passing 11,000, the aid effort continues with communities in Reading and Andover also doing their bit. Natalie Verney has our report.
The pictures are harrowing. They show complete devastation. The earthquake on Monday caused buildings to collapse. Thousands have been killed and hundreds of thousands have been made homeless overnight. That's why Ahmet and his friends immediately took action to help.
We took a minivan, we announced to every single house, every resource, every group we have, and we said, tell us your postcode, here is the list of the urgent material we need, and pack them, tag them, and they wrote into nice boxes. We traveled the whole Oxford with minivan all night. We were driving.
They drove the boxes to London, where they found roads gridlocked by others doing the same.
You could say that this earthquake impacted England more than Istanbul. Why? Because we have 500,000 Turkish people and Kurdish people in the UK here, and everybody who immigrated here, like living permanent in the UK, they have a relative there and they lost people. So everyone you will talk here in England, they have lost someone or somebody injured, somebody lost their house or relative. Like literally everybody is impacted, and that's the size of the problem.
Turkish communities from other parts of our region are also doing what they can. In Andover, donation drop-off points have been set up along the high street, with volunteers spending their evenings packing them onto vans.
We lost lots of our love there, our friends, families, our heart there, our brain there. Obviously over 40,000 people being affected, being 3 days today. They haven't get much help yet. It's heartbroken.
The UK has sent 77 search and rescue specialists, state-of-the-art equipment and 4 search dogs to Turkey. But for those with family and friends affected, nothing feels enough. Ahmet is searching for a permanent space in Oxford to collect donations and says help will be needed for many months to come. Natalie Verney, ITV News.
In other news, police are investigating 3 incidents of indecent exposure in Aylesbury. A man exposed himself to women along Riverside Walk in the Meadowcroft area on 3 separate occasions. Over the last 2 weeks, officers believe it's linked to 12 exposures in the town and in Wendover between July and December last year, which could be one man or more than one. Victims have described him as white and aged between his 20s and 40s.
A Good Samaritan who intervened in a fight in Reading which left 2 women injured is being urged to come forward. A man began harassing a group of people at the junction of Garrard Street and Station Road just after 4 a.m. on Sunday the 29th of January. 2 women in their 20s who were trying to defuse the situation were assaulted. A 40-year-old man from Wokingham was arrested and has since been released on bail. Police are keen to speak to a man who was wearing a grey top and reflective trousers. He was believed to be working in the area at the time. There are claims that the high-speed 2-rail project is taking a wrecking ball to wildlife and communities are in despair. That's the conclusion of the UK's wildlife trusts, who've just published a report into how construction is affecting nature.
Well, the fast route from Birmingham to London cuts through countryside in Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. HS2 Limited say they wholeheartedly reject the findings as fundamentally flawed. Wesley Smith reports.
There's not much love for HS2 in this part of Buckinghamshire. The village of Calvert is about as close as you can get, not just to one but two major rail projects, because this is where HS2 meets the east-west rail link. Between Bicester and Buckingham, the village is also home to this nature reserve, from where we could certainly hear the sound of construction work today.
The Calvert Jubilee Nature Reserve is a popular destination for walkers. Now, you used to be able to walk right around the lakes here, do a big circle, but now you can't. And this is the reason why. Construction for HS2.
HS2 Limited compulsorily purchased land from the Berkshire, Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire Wildlife Trust, and it's they, along with other trusts nationally, who say when it comes to protecting nature along the route, HS2 Limited got it wrong. Badly wrong.
We already knew that HS2 was bad for nature, but we didn't know quite how bad it is. And our report shows that the nature lost by HS2 will be 7.9 times as much as HS2 themselves say it will be.
They certainly refute what the Wildlife Trust are saying. What do you say to them?
Well, they've said what we've done is use the wrong data, but we're using HS2's own data, and we're using the same methodology that they've applied. We've just shown that their mapping that they've been doing has been fundamentally flawed, and they've missed off whole ponds, hedgerows, trees from their calculations. So the habitats they're destroying are much more extensive than they say they're going to be. And also they're completely undervaluing the nature they're destroying and overvaluing the compensatory habitats they're putting in place.
Now BBOUT want HS2 Limited urgently to recalculate the total loss to nature by re-evaluating existing biodiversity along the entire route while there's still time.
HS2 Limited say they strongly refute the findings of the Wildlife Trust's report. They've issued a statement in which they say, "We don't recognise the figures from the report, nor do we believe them to be reliable." The Wildlife Trust have undertaken limited desk research and have not accessed huge areas of land for undertaking ecological survey, in contrast to the ecologists who have compiled HS2's data. Independent experts from Natural England have consulted on our methodology, and it's been rigorously assessed by a team of professional ecologists, with data shared with the Independent Ecological Review Group. As well as delivering the country's largest environmental programme, planting 7 million trees and creating over 33 square kilometres of new habitats on Phase 1 alone, we continue to minimise loss through design refinements, such as our recent 30% reduction of the impact on ancient woodlands in Phase 1.
Nevertheless, the Wildlife Trusts want the government to step in to ensure their vision of the effect of HS2 on nature is taken into account. Wesley Smith, ITV News, Calvert.
Police are investigating an attempted dog theft in Aldershot. A woman in her 40s was walking her dog along a path behind Alderwood School playing fields when she was approached from behind by a man who tried to take the lead. She fell to the ground and the man ran off towards Aldershot Park.
A film created by a photography student at Oxford Brookes University has been shortlisted for a national award. Ruben Werledge from IFLI made the 3-minute film which explores the mental health benefits of wild swimming. It features Pauline Latcham, who's deaf, talking about her love of swimming outdoors.
You're watching ITV News Meridian here in the Thames Valley, still to come. The fight back begins a massive operation to counter the devastating effects of ash dieback.
Also coming up, the new underwater footage revealing just how much of the Titanic has already been lost to the sea.
Remember, you can find more on today's top stories from right across the Thames Valley by heading to our website. Please go to itv.com/Meridian. We'd love you to call us too. Our number is 0808 1010 095. And why not follow us on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram.
The president of Ukraine has been to one of the South's top military bases to see Ukrainian troops being trained to use British tanks.
It's his first visit to the UK since the Russian invasion almost a year ago. He also visited Parliament and met the King. Our political correspondent Phil Hornby reports.
The Army's been here at Bovington Garrison in Dorset since 1899. This is where soldiers from the Western Front learned how to operate the first ever tanks in World War I. More than a century later, the young soldiers being trained here at Lulworth Camp are Ukrainians, and the tanks are Challengers. These are all the President's men. These tanks will soon be on the battlefields of Ukraine. 75 miles away at the Ukrainian Community Centre in Reading, pride and delight that their leader was in this country.
Just amazing, because here we have a president that is leaving his country at a time of war to come to speak to our Prime Minister, and that to me is just amazing that he's doing that.
I feel like somebody from my family come to us.
His UK visit began this morning in Westminster.
I'm delighted that President Zelensky is here in the United Kingdom today. And I'm proud that we are expanding the training for Ukrainian forces.
I've had the privilege, I'm sure he has, of seeing firsthand the brilliant work our military is doing in Salisbury to train Ukrainians in defending themselves.
MPs were there, like the Isle of Wight's Bob Seeley with the glasses. He used to live in Ukraine. Former prime ministers were there too, to hear the president speak in the ancient Westminster Hall.
Ukrainian soldiers are being trained in Britain, in particular to operate Challengers, your main battle tanks. And I thank you very much for this powerful defensive step for tank assistance.
These Ukrainians will get the best training possible. They'll no doubt be out on Salisbury Plain once they get the hang of the tank and the Challenger, and no doubt used to great effect on the battlefield. His presence today, both in Dorset and here, and all the pictures, and it'll go out, and coverage of this like you're doing, will say to the world, don't give up on us.
This was one of those rare political events that seemed to unite just about every parliamentarian here. Normal political life was put on hold, so he could thank them, and they could thank him.
Quite welcome there. Well, Phil joins us now live from Westminster. Phil, you're actually in Westminster Hall tonight. What was the reaction to President Zelensky there?
It was pretty ecstatic. He got a very warm reception, as you would imagine. This famous old building, of course, has hosted many historic events over the centuries, most recently the lying in state of the late Queen. Today, MPs were hailing a man they regard as a hero. They all wanted to shake his hand. They all wanted to have a word with him. His message here, and in Dorset, of course, was thanks for the tanks. But there was another message as well. Tanks are fine, but we also need aircraft. Now, some MPs have been saying, yeah, we should give him all the planes that he wants. We should be supplying more aircraft. MPs like Richard Drax, who you heard in that piece, Boris Johnson too. The government, though, are being slightly more cautious. It's a decision, and a big decision, that they're going to have to take.
Phil, thank you very much.
Well, more on that story, of course, and the relief effort in Turkey and Syria on the national and international news, which follows us at 6:30 with the details. Here's Romilly Weeks.
The earthquake death toll climbs above 11,000 as rescue efforts continue in Turkey and Syria. Anger builds towards the Turkish president over the country's slow response as thousands remain trapped beneath the rubble. Here, the Ukrainian president thanks Britain for its support in a surprise visit to the UK. And is Basel making a comeback? Faulty towers could burst back on our screens after more than 40 years. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
The Church of England held a vote this afternoon on the vexed issue of same-sex relationships. At its big meeting, or synod, in Westminster, clergy and laity made a decision on the blessing of gay relationships.
Well, for some, such blessings are a step too far. For others, they fall short of gay marriage. James Webster is outside Church House with the latest for us. He's been speaking to clergy from our region.
These are difficult and at times painful decisions for the Church of England on an issue where there are strongly held views on both sides and everywhere in between. It is 10 years ago this week that MPs voted to allow same-sex marriages, but the Church of England has an exemption and doesn't have to carry out such weddings. Well, today, after a review lasting well over 5 years, bishops are asking around 500 members of the Church's governing body to agree to prayers and blessings for same-sex couples, but not marriages. It is a change which is too much for some and not enough for others.
It is a really important stepping stone, because I think once we've blessed same-sex couples publicly in church and blessed their relationships, then I think more and more people will be able to see the good things in those relationships as we move forward, and that will change people's hearts and minds.
The Bishop of Oxford there speaking ahead of this debate, where being here I've heard the passionate views which are being expressed inside and also outside, even protests. So on one side there are members of the LGBT community who feel like the Church doesn't welcome them, and then on the other side there are those who say the only relationships that should be recognised are those between a man and a woman.
I think what we've got is a really sad muddle. It's a compromise that is attempting to keep the Church united, but at the cost of the experience of LGBTQ people like myself and LGBTQI people who are both wanting same-sex marriage, and those of us who aren't wanting same-sex marriage. We're all going to be damaged by this compromise.
Well, the debate here began at 2 o'clock. It is really hard to predict what the outcome will be because there are some 28 amendments to the main bishop's proposals which have to be worked through. Some of them try to delay any decision being made. Others try to reject either all or some of what is suggested, either because they want none of it or they want the bishops to come back with full same-sex marriage proposals. It is not overstating it to say that this debate really goes to the heart of what the Church believes and how it interprets what the Bible says. I'll be back here tomorrow with full reaction to whatever has been decided.
James Webster reporting there. Now, a massive operation is underway in Sussex to counter the devastating impact on our woodlands from ash dieback disease.
Fungus has already killed many thousands of trees across our region. But in Brighton and Hove, steps are being taken to replace them with other species. It's hoped in time the work will create a richer habitat. As Malcolm Shaw now reports.
At three-cornered copse, contractors are hard at work fighting the effects of ash dieback, planting new trees to replace those lost to a disease which is devastating our woodlands. 14,000 whips, as they're called, are being dug in at different sites across the city of Brighton and Hove.
We've got a native mix of hawthorn, some oak, some hornbeam, some beech. We've also got some hazel, some wild service going in. So it's all a native mix to pretty much repopulate the woodland from all the ash dieback cutting that's been happening.
In Brighton and Hove alone, 10,000 ash trees have already been felled and more are likely to be cut down in the next few years. The disease is caused by a fungus which lives on the leaf litter. Its spores can travel up to 40 kilometres through the air. Ash dieback was first discovered in the UK in 2012. It's feared it will destroy around 80% of our ash trees at a cost of £15 billion. The disease has hit our region particularly hard. Normally, ash accounts for around 20 to 30% of the tree cover in woods like this.
As any native tree, it has a massive value to our ecology. Shade, heat, food source, the multiple ways it does help, all sorts of animals, the flora and the fauna. It's a huge loss of a single species within our ecology of our woodlands.
This is only the start of the replanting programme. Next year we'll see another 70,000 whips dug in. The trees will take time to mature, but the hope is they'll grow into healthy mixed woodlands, benefiting not just nature, but the people who come and enjoy them too. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Brighton.
Now, extensive new video from recent dives to the wreck of the Titanic have been released by OceanGate, the company given special permission to investigate how the ship is deteriorating at the bottom of the sea off the coast of Canada.
Well, it's carried out a number of dives with specialist equipment in 2021 and last year and confirms the wreck is slowly deteriorating. More dives will take place this year. The video is narrated by Titanic dive veteran and expert Rory Golden. More than 20 years since he made his first historic dive.
Well, the site is now a World Heritage Site and no one is allowed to touch the wreck. The main mast has now completely disintegrated and Captain Smith's cabin has been destroyed by the ravages of time. Experts say the wreck will one day be lost forever.
Just incredible pictures. Well, of course, Titanic left Southampton for New York in April 1912 and sank after hitting an iceberg. 1,500 died, including more than 500 crew who lived and who had family across the city.
See, even seeing those pictures now, they just continue to fascinate you and you're still looking for things because, incredibly, as we know, Titanic, the film, because that's what we will associate it with Kate Winslet, who grew up in Reading, is 25 years old on Friday. We both will say we can't believe that. And a new remastered version is being re-released in cinemas. 25 years.
That's the film. I don't know how old Kate Winslet is. I think slightly older than 25. Let's have a listen.
Titanic is one of the most recognisable names in the world. And we're now approaching the 25th anniversary of James Cameron's movie. And that will, I believe, reinvigorate the interest in it again. It brought the story to a whole new generation when it first came out. And I believe it'll happen again. And the one thing we can learn from our past can make us go forward to better times. So history is important. The Titanic story is important. And I hope it continues.
Still fascinates everyone to this day.
Yeah, incredible film as well, just groundbreaking stuff, really interesting. Right, let's talk about the weather, see if there's anything groundbreaking going on there. I mean, it's been quite settled of late, but there's still things of interest going on.
Yeah, that's right. The weather's never entirely quiet for us meteorologists. Of course, we talked yesterday about that really intense area of high pressure. Lots of blue, sunny skies by day, but by night, with the long nights, the clear skies and the light winds, prime conditions for a bit of fog. Let's take a look at some of the eerie pictures that have been dropping into the weather inbox. This first one from Claire Shepherd, taken in the New Forest. Freezing fog here, so when the temperature is below freezing, and no wonder Meridian has been home to the coldest spot in the UK for the last 2 nights, -8.4 in South Newington last night. Similarly eerie scenes along the river at Stockbridge there. Of course, waterways, prime candidates for a bit of fog formation with that extra moisture. And I don't know if you can make out this sort of white arc on the horizon there. This is from Nigel Pace on the Isle of Wight. Slightly clearer picture there from Clive. This is a fog bow, very similar to its colourful cousin, the rainbow. Sunlight reflecting off of water droplets. But in the case of fog, those water droplets are teeny tiny, much smaller than raindrops. It deals with the light in a very different way, diffuses all the colour, and we get these lovely white arcs. No less remarkable, though.
No, they are absolutely beautiful. I've never seen one in real life, but you haven't either.
Me neither,
no.
Yeah, so, I think you're making it up.
So great spot, those pictures. I'm on the late shift tonight. Is there more of this on the way?
Well, yeah, so tonight I think still the risk of some fog patches, certainly another frosty one to start with at least. But over the coming days, subtle shifts. We're going to still have high pressure, but a couple of very weak fronts coming our way. A bit more cloud, with a bit more cloud, a little bit less fog on the horizon.
More frozen windscreens, asking for a friend.
A couple more frosty nights to come, but it gets better.
Yes, I like my windscreen.
Anyway. Here's the full forecast out with Pip.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
It's been very settled for quite a few days now, and more of the same to come as we head through the next few days. Still the emphasis very much on dry conditions, but becoming increasingly cloudy with time, especially so through the weekend. And with a bit more cloud, it will also be a little less chilly, a slow recovery in those temperatures. So high pressure very much in charge at the moment. You can see it sticks with us right through the weekend. We will have a couple of fronts drifting towards us, but they're not going to amount to very much. Just a bit more cloud from time to time, and the outside chance of 1 or 2 spots of light rain or drizzle. And one of those will come our way as we head through tonight. We start with clear skies leading to a fairly widespread frost and some fog patches. But as the night wears on, that front sinks its way southeastwards, introducing more cloud, lifting the temperatures ever so slightly the right side of freezing, and so too lifting any frost and fog for many of us. So tomorrow morning, still a bit of frost and fog lingering in the far southeast, but the cloud soon spreading its way southwards. Behind it, an improving picture. And actually, as we head into the afternoon, lots of dry and fine weather, the sunshine making a return, but not helping the temperatures. Another fairly chilly day on the cards. Highs probably 8 or 9 Celsius, so single figures all round. These are the times of high water for tomorrow, then just the one there for Poole, 14 minutes past 11 in the morning. And overnight into Friday, I think it looks set to stay pretty quiet, dry, largely clear skies. Another fairly widespread frost for a time. Again, the potential for some mist and fog patches. Friday, still a decent amount of sunshine, but cloudier and a little less chilly into the weekend.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Just to explain, Matt's windscreen cracked.
Yes.
Now it's fixed because it was so cold. That was the story. I'm back later on with your late update. We've got Robbie Weeks with the ITV Evening News here next.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sorry.